Hello again, everyone. I'm Joe Longinusa, welcoming you to another edition of Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where industry leaders, golf professionals, and legends all come and discuss the great game we love so much. So without further ado, let's turn it over to our host to tell us who's next on the tee. Chris, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me again this morning on Next on the Tee. I am your host, Chris Mascaro, and today I am blessed to have three great guests that I get to share with you this morning. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. First up with me this morning, I'm going to get a return visit from Steve Mona. I'm very honored to say this is Steve's fifth visit with me on the show. He is annually ranked among the top most powerful people in golf. And what I love most about having Steve on the show is talking with him about all the good things that the game of golf does for our communities and for our economy. So look forward to chatting with Steve about that. There's just so many benefits that don't get enough publicity, about what goes on around the game of golf, like the $4 billion the tour annually gives back to charity. So guess what? We're going to talk more about that. We'll also talk about the annual World Golf Day event from earlier this year that Steve was a part of, and he's going to be joining me here in just a few moments. Following Steve, we'll get a return visit from one of Golf Magazine's top 100 instructors. That's Kellie Stenzel. We'll hear more, of her tips for how we can improve our game and some of the things that we can take out with us on the golf course this weekend to help hopefully shave a few strokes off of our scores. Kellie's going to be along to join me about 25 minutes from now. Then we'll wrap up the show by talking with our good friend and 2003 PGA champion, Shaun Micheel. We're going to get an update from Shaun for, what may be next for him at the end of this golf season and looking forward ahead to the 2016 golf season. Plus, Shaun, is so great about answering your questions, and we've got a batch of those as well. So he'll be answering more of those questions when he joins me about 45 minutes from now. So it's going to be another great show today, folks. I am so glad that you're here to take the journey with me. Next on the Tee, folks, is brought to you today and every weekend by our friends over at Seymour Putters. Let's get things rolling by hearing a word about our friends over there.
Golfers, has this happened to you? Great drive, perfect second shot on the green, only to 3 or even 4 putt? Shaking your head all the way back to the cart. I have good news. Help is on the way with the Seymour Putter. The Seymour Putter Company patented RST technology sets up the putter perfectly every time using a visible gun sight on the top line. Genius! It's like locking radar onto the target, in this case, the golf hole, putting the golfer in perfect position to make a reliable and consistent stroke. The 1999 U.S. Open, 2007 Masters, and 2015 British Open champions all used, you guessed it, the Seymour Putter. So if you're ready to make more putts, take strokes off your game, log on to Seymour.com. That's SEEMORE.com, and put a Seymour Putter in your bag today.
Yeah, like Joe said, check out the Rifle Scope technology that help win now 3 majors and 36 tour events and counting, and it's going to help you make more putts too. I know it's helping me. Check them out online at Seymour.com, and Seymour's SEEMORE.com, and get one in your bag. You're going to be very glad you did. We're also sponsored by the French Lick Resort in French Lick, Indiana. Folks, you want to talk about a spectacular resort to both play golf and to just relax and enjoy yourself at? Well, there isn't a better place anywhere on the planet than the French Lick Resort. Go to FrenchLick.com and see for yourself. I had the privilege of taking my family there back in June, and we're already looking forward to the next time we get to go back. The resort is historical. It's beautiful. They've got wonderful gardens out back behind the resort, a relaxing rocking chair porch across the front of the resort, and the golf, my friends, oh my goodness, the golf. The Pete Dye course is kept in championship condition year-round, and they could be ready to host a major at a moment's notice. They hosted the Senior PGA Championship early this year, and just a few weeks ago, the LPGA Legends Championship. So if you've always wondered what it would be like to play in major championship conditions, you can do it at the Pete Dye course. They also have the Donald Ross design course, which is also fantastic. It's the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship victory back in 1924. They've also got the Valley Links course on the property that dates back to 1907. So the French Lick Resort needs to be on your list of places to stay and play. And oh, by the way, they've got a casino on the property as well. For more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Allen Edmonds, makers of top quality made in the USA shoes, folks. Those shoes and the shoes of great leaders from the Oval Office to corner offices, to stage and screen and promising cubicles all around the country are what, make people successful. The right footwear is important on the carpets and the hardwood floors of our global economy. Get it right with made in the USA quality and value from Allen Edmonds. Allen Edmonds is an American original. They've been making shoes right here in the United States, in Wisconsin, since 1922. Check them out online at allenedmonds.com. Also want to kick off the show like we do every single week by saluting the brave men and women serving in our military. We want to thank you folks for your daily sacrifices and what you do every day to keep the rest of us safe. We also want to thank our veterans for all you've done for us over the years. We truly appreciate everything that our military personnel do to preserve our freedoms and our liberties. It's through your strength and your efforts that our way of life is even possible. Our sincere thanks as well to Shaun Cruz and the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It's an honor for us to have Next on the Tee be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. Also, we want to remind our veterans, be sure to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org. What a wonderful site with great news and articles and a wealth of information specifically geared towards our veterans that I'm sure you're going to find both interesting and beneficial. Again, globalvoiceforveterans.org. Check it out and bookmark it. You're going to be very glad you did. All right, folks, now joining me on the Seymour Putters guest line is Steve Mona. Like I said a moment ago, privileged to say this is Steve's fifth visit with me here on the show. Let me remind you a little bit about his background. He is the CEO of the World Golf Foundation, the organization that manages the World Golf Hall of Fame, the First Tee, and Golf 2020. Going back to the 80s, Steve served as tournament director of the Northern California Golf Association. He then became assistant manager of press relations for the United States Golf Association from January of 82 to June of 83, at which time he became the executive director here, not far from here, where I'm at, for the Georgia State Golf Association. In November 1993, he became the chief executive officer of the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, which he held until March of 2008 when he assumed the role of chief executive officer at the World Golf Foundation. He is annually named by Golf Digest as one of the most powerful people in the game of golf, and I am very excited that he is back with me and Next on the Tee this morning. Good morning, Steve. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
It's good to be with you, Chris. I always enjoy spending a few minutes with you.
I appreciate it as well. And, Steve, I want to kind of start things off. Give us a health check on the game of golf. We hear so many negative things, it feels like, in the media these days for, the growth of the game and what's going on, on the periphery of the game. What are you seeing?
Well, my general response to that question is golf is healthy, and certain segments of the game are doing very well. So let me explain what I mean by that. From the standpoint of golf at the facility level, we're right about at flat. We're just slightly up in terms of rounds played in 2015 versus 2014. And as we've discussed before, rounds played have basically stabilized over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
So golf is stable in that regard as far as a recreational game that you and I and 25 million other Americans play. But then golf, from the perspective as an entertainment sport, is extremely healthy. And you just have to look at what we saw this year with Jordan Spieth winning the first two majors and nearly winning the next two, and then Jason Day coming on so strong, and Rory McIlroy earlier in the year, and Ricky Fowler. So I would say that the current state of the male professional game is extremely strong, and the future looks very bright. And then the women's game is very strong. We just saw a very exciting Solheim Cup, a lot of great young stars on the LPGA Tour as well. So from that perspective, golf is in very good hands.
Yeah, and to your point, Steve, I mean, we have so many talented, on both the men's and the women's tour, so many talented young players Right? It just feels like a youth, infusion going on in the game of golf at the professional level. You mentioned, Jordan Spieth and Jason Day, obviously Rory McIlroy, and a little bit of a down year for Rory, more about health than anything else, but I'm sure he's going to come back strong. Ricky Fowler, you named as well. So we've got so many great, young players on the PGA Tour right now. Boy, to me, it feels more energetic than it's felt in years. I mean, because we had Tiger, who dominated the sport for so many years, and it felt like, year in and year out, many guys were playing for second place. But boy, these guys are jockeying for position all the time. Just when you think Jordan Spieth is going to start to dominate like Tiger did, Jason Day sort of finds himself, if you will, kind of got over the hump, if you will, and got that major monkey off his back. And boy, he has just taken off ever since. And you can't discount Rory and Ricky. Talk about the energy that you feel right now on the PGA Tour.
Well, no question about it. And I make a couple of important points beyond how they're playing, which is fantastic. But number one, they represent themselves in the game so well. They're people you would love for any of those four to be dating your daughter, let me tell you. And so that's one piece that I think is really important. And then the second piece, which is really important for the game, is they're connecting with the millennial generation, which candidly is one of the areas that we as an industry are very focused on, and that is how do we reach the millennial generation? How do we bring them into the game in the same kinds of numbers and with the same kind of passion that we, the baby boomers, had for so many years? So They're really helping us to bridge that gap. So on those two dimensions, they've been a godsend for the game as well.
And Steve, as we talk about the youth and the energy coming up and building up the game of golf, boy, the National Drive, Chip, and Putt competition has been a wonderful event, and we're getting more and more young kids, it seems like, involved and excited about that event. I believe there have been 80 finalists already named and getting their tickets to Augusta next year. Talk about the growth of that event.
Yeah, Drive, Chip, and Putt has just been nothing short of remarkable. It's really just in its third year, if you think about it. So from starting at zero, it's now arguably the most well participated in junior activity as far as an event on the golf calendar, if you will. And what's so great about it is it offers kids of all abilities the chance to compete because they go through 3 different sets of qualifying events before they reach Augusta National the Sunday before the Masters. And then what an experience that is to actually be able to compete at Augusta National on the eve of the Masters and have many competitors who will be playing in the Masters there to watch you compete. So fantastic event. I give tremendous credit to the Masters tournament and the Augusta National, and also the USGA and the PGA of America, who are part of this as well. And so those 3 organizations have done a great job really creating an event that has captured the imagination of America, both youth and adults as well.
And speaking of capturing the imagination, it's a good transition. I'm interested to get your perspective on the Solheim Cup. You mentioned it a moment ago in the controversy that took place there, on the second to last day, and the U.S. women's big comeback and capturing the imagination of young female players to want to be a part of that event, because the way it transpired on the Saturday and the way it finished up on the Sunday, I think I'm hoping goes a long way to inspiring young girls to want to play and be a part of the game.
Well, there's no question about that, and I think again on 2 dimensions there, you get the whole nationalism and representing your country, and who doesn't want to do that? So that alone brings a lot of attention and brings a lot of national pride into the equation. So that's a big piece of what the Solheim Cup's about, and same with the Ryder Cup, obviously, and the President's Cup as well. But the second thing, and this was really apparent this year, is that competition is intense. This isn't any exhibition, and these are young ladies, for the most part, really putting it all out on the line. Notwithstanding the whole issue on was the putt conceded, was it not, which I think we would all agree was an unfortunate incident. But notwithstanding that, that was a tremendously well competed, if you will, event in terms of the passion and just the effort that those ladies were putting in to trying to win their match on behalf of their country. So on that basis, that I think transcends gender even. I think, I know myself, it was very interesting just to see the pure competition that was going on. So that's good for the game too. So the Solheim Cup really is definitely an event that brings a lot of interest to the women's game, and is something that I think will ultimately be an excellent vehicle in driving greater interest and participation in the game among women and girls.
And you mentioned a moment ago, Steve, the President's Cup, and talk about the growth of the game globally. I think the President's Cup has done a great job in bringing in we're so focused on the Ryder Cup, right, with what goes on between the USA and the European team, but now we expand out with the President's Cup and we bring in the rest of the world into this. Talk about we're 9 days away from that event kicking off. Talk about the significance of what the President's Cup has had.
Well, I would mention a couple things. First, obviously, it brings in the rest of the world minus Europe. So you get the best from South Africa, you get the best from Australia, from all the various Asian countries. So that alone gives it a different dimension. But the thing I'm really interested in this year is watching it unfold in South Korea. It's the first time for the President's Cup to be played in that part of the world. As we all know, Korea is mad about golf and has a tremendous track record in terms of the women's professionals and how dominant they are, but men are coming on pretty strong as well. So we really look at this as an opportunity to, one, showcase the game at the highest level in that part of the world, but two, to create greater interest and participation. So the President's Cup just didn't wind up in South Korea by accident. It's there to do those two things, and we're really confident that when we leave and it's all said and done, and I'm sure it'll be a great competition, there will be people in both South Korea but in other sectors in that part of the world that will have a greater interest in the game, and hopefully that'll lead to more participation in the game. And we think that some of the young people, the very talented young people, will be inspired to try to play at the highest possible level and maybe become part of the President's Cup as a competitor one day.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we look at the event being over there, and some of the travel advertisements are it's sort of a gateway now to maybe go spend some time in Japan or over in China, and we're seeing such great growth, particularly on the women's side, like you mentioned, for the game of golf over in that part of the world. But talk about not only in South Korea, but how we're seeing the game sort of expand now that we are seeing it come alive in the country of China.
Well, China, as we all know, is basically the biggest economy now in the world, or it runs neck and neck with the United States. It's got, as we all know, 6 or 7 times the amount of people we have in the U.S. So China as a country has got tremendous potential where the game of golf is concerned, both from a interest standpoint and a participation standpoint. And I think what's key and gets overlooked a lot is the fact that golf becoming part of the Olympics, and obviously will debut in 2016 after a 100-plus year hiatus, is going to be critical for the growth of the game in countries where golf hasn't been part of the culture, at least the kind of rank-and-file culture, if you will, for years, if ever. And China's going to be one of those places. And what will happen is two things. One, you'll see at a competitive level, there will be the best athletes in China who have shown a proclivity for playing golf well will be trained at the highest level. You may know that Greg Norman is advising the China national team, so they're going to get the best as it relates to that. So they'll compete. Now, whether they'll be on the medal stand next year in Rio, I don't know, but they're going to compete, and over time you will see that occur. But the second thing that I think a lot of people lose sight of is that all countries that are part of the Olympic Games are required to offer a grassroots training program among the citizens of that country for whatever Olympic sport they participate in. Now, in a country like the United States, we have all kinds of programs here, and we've talked about some already. That's really not going to be any kind of boon to our player development. But you take a country like China and others where golf has not really been part of the culture, the mainstream culture of sport, that's going to increase. So we're really very hopeful that over time, and it'll take probably a generation or maybe even 2 to really take hold, but we're hopeful that you'll see golf become more part of the mainstream society, of sporting society in a country like China. And then if we get our fair share on a percentage basis of people playing golf in a huge country like China, that could translate into a lot of people. So that's the hope that we believe the promise of the Olympics, if you will.
Yeah. And just to kind of continue down the Olympics path, we're hearing different things about, how preparations are going for the events down in Rio. What are you hearing about the golf event and how it's shaping up and how it's going to be played down there?
Yeah, the golf course is going to be fine. I mean, there were a lot of fits and starts there. There were some times where there was discussion about, well, maybe we need to find another golf course. It's been designed, it's grown in. There's going to be at least one competition that's going to take place earlier in 2016, so we can get a dry run around the golf course, see how it plays from a competitive standpoint and all the logistics that you have to have in place. So we feel confident that the golf event will come off fine, because we've got the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the USGA, the R&A, the PGA European Tour, LPGA. They're all behind it, and they're all putting their best people on the case, if you will. So we're quite confident that will come across very well, and it needs to, because what a lot of people don't realize is that in 2017, the IOC is going to make a decision as to what sports will continue in the Olympics in 2024 and beyond. And it's important to note that golf is only guaranteed a spot in the 2016 Olympics and then the 2020 Olympics in Japan. And then we're not guaranteed past that. So we have to really put our best foot forward in 2016 so that the IOC will continue to allow golf to be part of the Olympic program in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. So there's a lot of folks that have a stake in this, right? So I'm assuming, and keep me honest here, Steve, that the USGA and the R&A and everybody else has sort of got a stake in how successful this thing is. So I'm imagining you've got a lot of brain trust down there trying to make sure everything comes off as it's supposed to.
Well, let me put it to you this way: from the standpoint of the development of the game worldwide, there's no more important event that's going to take place in 2016 than the Olympics. I can assure you that. And the whole reason, and I was in the boardrooms when all these conversations were occurring, the main reason that we did this and really, frankly, made a lot of sacrifices for golf to become part of the Olympics as it related to other events that are going to take place around that time, was that we felt that there was nothing we could do that could help generate greater interest and participation in the game worldwide than having golf be part of the Olympics. And that's why we put so much effort, resources, both financial and human, behind this. So it's really important for those Olympic Games, golf's piece of it, if you will, to come off as well as possible.
And I'm assuming that message is filtered down to the players about how big a deal this is going to be. And I know it's it's another event on their calendar for 2016, but this does have a broader impact to the game of golf. And like I said, I'm imagining that's gotten down to the players as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talked to some of the leading players when we were going through this process, because the IOC made it clear to us that we needed to be able to deliver the best athletes in our sport. Well, those are professionals in the sport of golf, as you know. So we had to be able to get, to the extent we could, assurances that, hey, if you qualify, are you going to play? And we got assurances from all the top players. A lot of them actually became part of the bid process. Padraig Harrington did, Micheel did, people like that. They actually accompanied some of our officials to certain of the meetings. So we have the assurance of those players that if they qualify, they'll be there competing and giving it their all, and that's critically important. So one, we have to have the best players there who are eligible, and then two, the event itself has to come off really well. The TV visuals have to come across well. The competition has to be compelling. We have the least control over that, so hopefully we'll have a compelling competition. But everything has to come off pretty much exactly right for us. And if that happens, then we're pretty confident we'll be part of the Olympics going forward.
And how, for the players, obviously they're going to want to play well because it is so important, and they're going to want to, make sure that, their game is obviously in tip-top shape. But, going down there, practice rounds and knowing the golf course, what impact is that going to have on the schedule for next year?
Well, it's had, as you probably know, it's had to be moved around. So what's going to occur on the men's side is you're going to have the Open Championship, and then 2 weeks later, you're going to have the PGA Championship. So the PGA Championship is going to move into late July. It's going to move up about 2 weeks. And then you'll have another week off, so to speak, and then you'll have the Olympic competition. And then you'll come back off of that, and then you'll get into the FedEx Cup slightly thereafter. So a lot of things have been moved around. There's some events like the John Deere Classic is going to take place at a different time. The Travelers next year. But I'll tell you what, the tournament directors and the sponsors of all these events, I have to give them a tremendous amount of credit because they've all taken the bigger picture and the long view. What they said is, this 1 year it's going to inconvenience us, and maybe our event doesn't come off maybe as well as it did in previous years, but we're going to basically take one for the team because the bigger picture here is we're getting our sport on an international stage unlike any other international stage that exists, and we're creating an opportunity for our game to be put in front of audiences that never before would have been exposed to the game. And so what's the price tag of that? And how else can you get that done? The answer is there's no other way to do it than to be part of the Olympics.
And to that point, I mean, no one likes to go in if you're running one of those events, and I can certainly get on board. I'm sure they're getting on board with taking one for the team. Are they being compensated a little bit? Is there something in it for them if they say, hey, look, over the years we've been able to raise X. This year it's Y because we took one for the team. Is that going to be offset somehow for those guys?
Well, each of the events is basically it has its own P&L and its own structure. So it's really I'm not privy to all the machinations there. I will tell you this, that and this is probably the best way to answer your question. At the PGA Tour level, in the LPGA Tour level, the events that have been impacted and have had to move around and maybe in the places that are not quite ideal for them, there will be consideration for that going forward. Trust me, because that's the way the PGA Tour takes the long view on things, and they realize that their tournaments really, that's their product, and they have to support the tournaments to the best extent possible. So there will be, I'll put it to you this way, if you talk to the tournament directors a few years afterwards, they'll tell you, yes, it all came out in the wash, so to speak, and we wound up fine.
Steve, just a couple more before we let you go. We've got our next guest, Kellie Stenzel, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Kellie in just a moment. One of the things that I always like for you to share when you come on the show is the amount of money that the PGA raises for charity. Do you know yet how much money golf is looking to give back to charity so far this year?
Well, the statistic, and we've talked about this before, Chris, is golf, and I'm talking about the whole game, not just the PGA Tour now.
Right.
But golf as an industry generates and creates close to $4 billion. The actual number is $3.9 billion per year for charity. And the way that breaks down, and by the way, just to put that in some context, that is more money than the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL combined create for charity. Mm-hmm. But the way that breaks down is, Chris, it's mostly being generated at the facility level. So there are, just to give you some basic math, 15,000 plus or minus, it's a little higher than that, golf courses in the U.S. 75% of golf courses conduct charitable events during the course of the year, so that's roughly about 12,000. Each course, on average, hosts 12 events a year, so that's 144,000 events that occur each year on golf courses across the United States, and each event, on average, generates a little bit north of $28,000 net for charity. So that's where that big number comes from. The PGA Tour last year in 2014 generated $141 million for charity. That was a record number, and the PGA Tour has generated over $2 billion in charity since it started that model many years ago. But the real strength of golf's charitable impact comes from those 144 events 144,000 events at 12,000 of the nation's facilities. And the other thing I would say, two other quick points. One is that almost all of the money that gets generated by golf goes to causes outside of golf. So it might be the Cancer Society, the Humane Society, whatever the case might be. And in number two, in a lot of cases, particularly for local charities, a substantial amount of their annual budget is generated by their charitable golf tournament. So golf is actually helping to drive in a very real way the success of a lot of local charities. So I think those are two important points that get overlooked.
Yeah, and that's why I want you to share it, Steve, when you come back on the show all the time. And I thank you for being willing to do that. I know I ask that question to you a lot, but I never want that point to get lost or forgotten. I don't think it gets enough play. So I appreciate that you come on and you share it with me when you're a part of the show. One last point before I let you go, Steve, and just on a personal level for you, I imagine it is difficult for you regarding like golf equipment that you play and the brands of things that you wear, because like I mentioned at the top, you're always one of the most influential people in the game, and I'm imagining that everyone wants you to play their clubs and wear their brand of clothes. How is it for you to try to be as neutral as you can?
Well, I do try my best, but at the end of the day, you have to play with something. I do have a fair amount of equipment and apparel, and I do my best to rotate as much as I can. So
gotta hurt your game, though.
Well, I'm not that great a player to begin with. Okay, I'm a 10 handicap. I'm a 9-point-something index, so it's okay, Chris. Trust me. So, but I do. Let me put it this way: I do like to promote as many different brands and as many different destinations as I can through what I wear and what I play. So
there you go. All right. Steve, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to be a part of the show. It's always such a privilege to get the opportunity to talk with you. Remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the things that you're doing, both online and over social media.
Well, the easiest thing would be to go to worldgolffoundation.org or WGF.org or golf2020.org. Those are the two easiest ways to keep up with us online. And then also wearegolf.org as well, because that we didn't really talk about our government relations efforts, but that speaks to all of what we're doing in Washington, and it actually goes beyond that too. So those three, any of those three, World Golf Foundation, Golf 2020, or We Are Golf, all .orgs, will get you into the kind of into the inner circle, if you will.
There you go. All right, Steve, thank you so much again for being a part of the show. I really value your time. All the best to you and your family. Look forward to the opportunity to catch up with you again, I hope, real soon.
I hope so, too, Chris. Great to be with you.
All right, take care, Steve.
You too.
That's Steve Mona. Wow, what a great opportunity it is always to get the opportunity to talk with Steve, the Chief Executive Officer at the World Golf Foundation, and they do so many good things. And like I say, I appreciate the fact that Steve continues to come back, and I always like to make sure that he makes the point about how much money the game of golf is generating back for local communities and charities, all around the country. So doing great things. I think that's a very important point that too often doesn't get enough airplay. All right, we've got our next guest, Kellie Stenzel, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Kellie on the other side of this station identification.
You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, heard around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
Now back with me on the Seymour Putters guest line is Kellie Stenzel. Let me remind you about Kellie's background. She's from Geneva, New York, which is upstate between Buffalo and Syracuse. She played 4 years of college golf at Furman, and during her senior season, she led her team to a second-place finish in the NCAA Finals. After college, she played professionally for 5 years on the Futures Tour, the European Tour, Asian Tour, South African Tour, and Australian Tour. She turned her attention to teaching, and Golf Magazine has named her one of the top 100 teachers every year since 2009, and Golf for Women magazine has named her one of their top 50 instructors. And to put icing on the cake, Golf Magazine has also named her one of the most beautiful women in golf, and I am delighted that she is back with me and Next on the Tee this morning. Good morning, Kellie. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. How have things been with you? It's been far too long since I had the opportunity to talk with you.
I know, it's been a long time. I'm glad to be with you this morning. We had a good summer up in New York. We spent a couple of months up there, but now I'm back in sunny South Florida getting ready to organize all our teaching events and golf events this coming season for Palm Beach Par 3 and Boca Raton Resort and Club. So it's all good down here.
There you go. And now, before we get into all the golf this morning, Kellie, I remember from our last conversation, you having grown up near Buffalo and now living down in Florida, you're a big Bills fan and a Dolphins fan. And this weekend, they play each other. So who are you rooting for?
They do. You know, I always find that I end up deferring back to the Bills. As much as I like the Dolphins, and I'm a big fan of Steve Ross, who's their owner, I defer back to the Bills. It's just in my blood. I can't do anything about it.
All right. Now, it's been, like I say, almost a year since we've had the opportunity to talk with you. So curious, I love your website, KellieStenzelGolf.com. Talk about what's going on and what's the latest around your golf game.
Well, I'm really happy to say I've added a facility this past year. We are now running the instruction at Boca Raton Resort and Club, which is just a beautiful place. The hotel is amazing. We have 1,000 hotel rooms and a very friendly membership, and it's just a beautiful place down in Boca Raton, South Florida. So we have a nice staff down there of very qualified professionals, and we run monthly golf schools and daily clinics, and it's been fun to really kind of have a new place to really grow, and they really didn't have a lot going on down there. So it's been really a great first year, and we're looking forward to an even better second year.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's fun.
Kellie, talk about being named one of the most beautiful women in golf by Golf Magazine. It seems like that has become a bit of a controversial topic every year as Golf Magazine looks to put out its new cover. Is it among lady golfers and your peers? Do you feel like it takes anything at all away from how great you and your peers on the LPGA play the game?
It's funny. I'm going to tell you about my experience with it. I don't think I really realized what was happening. I mean, I was honored to be included. I thought it was very nice. And when I showed up for the photo shoot, and this was a few years ago now, it's like 3 years ago, I brought golf clothes because I'm used to going to photo shoots, and I just always bring my own golf clothes. Well, fortunately, Jessica Marksberry, who's really a great girl, and she had clothes for me. I didn't realize it was quite such a fashion shoot. But I thought it was very tastefully done. I thought that kind of what they did with each individual woman was matching her personality, mine being a little more conservative, so my outfits were more conservative. But no, I don't think it takes anything away. I think it's just another side of, it's another side of the business. It's another side of me and kind of what I do. And I was proud to be included just because I thought they were, with what they brought for me to wear and how they represented me, was true to me. And, girls are some women are a little more, want to dress a little more sexy, and that's their choice. And I thought they did a good job of being true to the individual person doing the shoot. And like I said, I just think it's just another side of each person. Yeah. And they really allowed me to be me. And they enabled me to talk about, back when I was playing and I played with the King of Malaysia. So it was,
right.
They did a nice job of being true to each individual person that they've chosen.
So now that you've thrown out the King of Malaysia, you shared the story with us last time, but it's been a while. Do you mind sharing that story again, what that was like?
Yeah, I was playing the Ladies Asian Tour, and I was back at my hotel room waiting to play in the Pro-Am, and all my friends were out at the golf course, and they called me back at the hotel, and they said, listen, you've got to hurry. You've got to get to the golf course because you've been paired with the King of Malaysia. You guys are crazy. There's just, I figured they were just absolutely kidding me. So I go back to my room, and I'm thinking, and I thought, well, I better go just in case they're telling me the truth. So I hop on the bus, and I get out there, and sure enough, I was lucky enough to be paired with the King of Malaysia, and it was really just an amazing experience. He could not have been nicer. He had his whole entourage with his little person who carried his golf shoes and his royal golf cart, and motorcycles went out ahead of us and cleared the hole. And it was a really fun day. He couldn't have been nicer. He arranged for me and all of my friends to tour the palace. It was really just, one of those moments that we're lucky because we're in the world of golf that opened the doors to us, and it was really just a great experience.
So there wasn't the night before a pairings party, and all of a sudden they're picking names out of a hat, and there's Kellie, Stenzel, and the King of Malaysia.
Yeah, no, it was really a surprise given to me that day, and it was a lot of fun.
Kellie, I'm curious now about your alma mater. They continue to be a force in ladies college golf. Finished second this year at the Lady Paladin Invitational this past week, and a couple of their players finished just behind Allison Houston, a freshman from Clemson who ended up taking the individual honors. But a lot of the players from your alma mater were right there at the top of the leaderboard. Do you keep up with what's going on with ladies golf at Furman?
I do a little bit. It was a great experience for me. I grew up, like as we mentioned, in Western New York, and to go down to Greenville, South Carolina, and get this amazing education, and we traveled all over the country playing in our tournaments. I do keep up with it a little bit, maybe not as much as I should, but it's great to see the team doing well again, and, they had a little bump in the road with the men's team, but we're able to raise some money and kind of keep that going. So it's nice to see them doing really well. Who's done amazing, though, is the coach when I was there, Mick Potter. He's at Alabama, and he's just he is an amazing coach. He was an amazing coach to me. I got so much better in 4 years under his guidance, and he has taken Alabama to a whole other level. So it's nice to see Mick doing well, and it's nice to see the Lady Paladins doing well.
Yeah, to your point, I was going to ask you about the influence that he had over you. You talk about him being an amazing coach. What are some of the things that he instilled in you that helped develop your game?
Well, when I went to Furman, honestly, I think I thought I was better than I was 80, but not all the time, that's for sure. And he was just a great coach, a great motivator. We had fun, but he was able to really get a lot out of each player. I think he made each player the best that they could be. And by the time, I graduated, I was good enough to try to play professionally. And he was just a huge, huge part of that.
And as you mentioned, the game being fun, Kellie. I'm curious when, like I said in your intro, when you turned pro, you played on several different tours over in Europe and Asia and South Africa and Australia. So you're sort of jumping from continent to continent like that. Was the game fun back then, or was that part of the reason you looked at it like, boy, this is sure, all this travel sure is a grind? Did that rob some of the fun of playing the game from you?
No, it's funny, Chris. It was almost the opposite effect. When I graduated from Furman, I turned professional. I started playing the Futures Tour, and I didn't love it. Not that I didn't like the playing, I just didn't love it was almost a little bit too small town. I grew up in a small town, and I really wanted to see a bigger world. So we changed our minds and decided to skip off of the Futures Tour and go play, as you mentioned, almost every foreign tour to women. We were 22. We were young. I traveled with Kathy Hart, who's Kathy Hartwood now, and we just had a ball. We were 22. We're traveling the world. We're playing professional golf. People would welcome us into their home and show us their country. It was not a grind at all. It was, if anything, it was a little bit too much fun because we just had the best time. People couldn't have been nicer. We spent 2 years in South Africa, a month at a time. And the South Africans were just so welcoming and warm and loved the country. So it was, we still look back at it and say, boy, we were really lucky. We appreciated it then, but I think now we appreciate it more. It was a wonderful experience. I would recommend any golfer who's coming out of college who maybe isn't quite good enough to go play a foreign tour, because it really just opens your eyes. And typically the people there are very, very welcoming. That's
great. And Kellie, let's talk about some of the tips that our listeners can find. Like I mentioned, on your website, KellieStenzel.com, and you can also find them out on YouTube as well. And so many of we weekend hackers have a problem with slicing the ball. I know my buddy Bob hasn't seen woods that he hasn't loved being in. So talk about a drill or an adjustment that we can make that can help us hit more fairways.
I'll tell you that I don't think I have any students that chronically slice the ball because they can't stand it. It's such a distance robber. It's almost a little bit depressing. You know, you think you've made pretty good contact, and that ball goes out there, and all of a sudden it takes for a right-handed golfer. So it's definitely fixable, and don't hesitate to go off the beaten path a little bit and do these things to the extreme, because there's nothing more welcoming than a hook to a slicer. So the first thing I would do is get in there and be pretty extreme with the grip, because the way you position your hands onto the grip of the club, that controls the club face. So you've got to get club face control. So what I would do for a right-handed golfer is take both of your hands and rotate them more to the right. So on your left hand, you'd be seeing more knuckles, and don't hesitate to do it a lot. I mean, see 2, 3, 4 knuckles, really turn it over. And as you turn that left hand over, turn that right hand under. So you're turning both hands to the right. When you turn that right hand under, go ahead and see some fingernails. Go ahead and take it to the extreme. You can always come back. You can always do it less. So the first thing I would do is go ahead and get a good grip on there and start to get that club face a little more square to even a little bit closed. And then my other kind of generic piece of advice would be to make sure that on your backswing, talk about a right-handed golfer here, make sure that your left underarm stays right against your chest. Don't let it come away. Don't let it roll over your chest, because both of those motions would open the face. So really, really strong grip. Turn both hands way to the right and keep that left arm really close to keep that face square in the backswing. I'd start there.
That's a great tip. And one of the other tips, Kellie, that I thought, that's unconventional, but a great idea. Is one of the tips that I've seen is where you show the ball kind of nestled into the rough, just off the back part of the green. And since we all like to think that we're Phil Mickelson and we can hit these spectacular flop shots, when in fact we really can't, you show an interesting tip for hitting that shot with a putter, just sort of adjusting your posture a bit. Walk us through how we should deal with that shot.
Yeah, Chris, it's always minimizing risk with everything really that I teach. So if you're not quite perfect, that you're still going to be okay. I like to say if it doesn't show up on the scorecard if you make a mistake. So when that ball's buried in the rough, but just like a step or two off of the green, you can still putt that, and it doesn't look like you should be able to just because you see that rough.
Right.
You take your normal putting setup and then put a lot of your weight on your forward foot, so that your forward shoulder drops down. When you make your normal putting stroke from there, what will happen is the putter will come in at a little bit of a steeper angle of attack, a little bit more like a V. And what that does that's great here is it gets the ball slightly airborne. It'll pop up over that rough grass around the edges of the green, start rolling. So it's really not making any contact with that initial grass. It takes a little bit of practice because it's hard to believe that you don't need to add power. But you'll see when you get that much lean in the shaft and lean in the shoulder that the ball does actually jump right over that first cut of rough.
And Kellie, when you're preparing to go play a round of golf, do you have a stretching routine or a particular way that you like to warm up? That I mean, so many of us, right? We get to the golf course a few minutes before our tee time. We rush out to the practice tee if we have time. We'll hit a couple of drives, and then boom, we're off to the first tee. Do you have a routine that would probably be a better idea for us to follow?
Well, I think that we all deal in reality and that there is not a lot of time. So, my routine varies whether I'm playing a charity event like you talked about earlier. That's most of my golf right now is just charity golf tournaments for fun. So let's say I only have that 5 minutes. Let's talk about reality first. I'll hit a few pitch shots with my sand wedge, and then I try to really quickly touch on each family of my clubs. So I might hit a short iron or two, a hybrid or two, a fairway wood or two, and then 3 or 4 drives, and then go back to that sand wedge pitch shot. So I feel like I'm just quickly warming up each area. If I were preparing to play in a tournament that I actually had to keep score, I would follow a similar order, but I would putt. I would maybe putt for 15 minutes first to get a feel for the speed of the greens, through my bag in a similar way that I mentioned before, but hit a few more balls with each club, and then I would go back to the putting green and putt for another 15 minutes. So if I'm keeping score, there's a lot of my warm-up time that involves that putting green and getting a feel for the speed of the greens.
Mm-hmm. Kellie, thank you so much sharing, your stories and your tips with us. It's always amazing to get to spend some time with you. Remind our listeners how they can follow you both online and over social media.
I would love to have them visit my website. It's KellieStenzelGolf.com, and I'm going to be coming out with some DVDs in the next month or so that we filmed. Full swing, short game, and bunker, because I know a lot of golfers don't love that bunker. So
yes.
I would love to have you visit the website and maybe digitally download those. And also you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Kellie Stenzel Golf.
That's awesome. Kellie, thank you so much for coming back on the show today. I hope it won't be as long, between visits this next time around, because you're a delight.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's always a lot of fun anytime I'm available.
I appreciate it, Kellie. Take care. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
You too, Chris. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's Kellie Stenzel. Again, Kellie Stenzel Golf. And let me make sure I spell it out for you here, because she spells her first name with an I-E. So it's Kellie, and Stenzel is Stenzel. So KellieStenzelGolf.com. Great stuff on there. A lot of great videos, a lot of great tips. They're going to help you shave some strokes off your score. All right, we've got our next guest, Shaun Micheel, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Shaun on the other side of this word from our friends over at the French Lick Resort.
You just can't beat this weather. The leaves are starting to change. It's the perfect time to get away to French Lick Resort and play the courses the champions play. This year, the Pete Dye course at French Lick has hosted the Senior PGA Championship and the Legends of the LPGA Championship. Play our Donald Ross course and feel like 1924 PGA champion Walter Hagen. Fall is the perfect time to play the courses the champions play at French Lick Resort. Book our Hall of Fame package now at FrenchLick.com.
You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro. Heard around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
Now back with me to answer more of your questions on the Seymour Putters guest line is our good friend and 2003 PGA champion, Shaun Micheel. Hey, Shaun, how have you been, my friend?
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Good.
So, Shaun, a couple of questions before we get into our viewers' questions or listeners' questions. I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. I want to start by getting your thoughts on the controversy last week at the Solheim Cup and the match between Allison Lee and Brittany Lincecum and Charlie Hall and Suzanne Pedersen. If that had been you, and you stroked that putt, and your competitors walked off the green like that over towards the next tee, would you have considered it a gimme?
I suppose so. That look, obviously not being there, it's hard to put myself in that situation. I just know that, I've not ever, given a putt or picked up a putt without, either saying or hearing something from the guy or the team that I'm playing against. It was kind of unusual, and I didn't see it happen live. So I don't know if both ladies walked off the green or if it was just Charlie Hull that walked off the green. And I think I'd read something that she was going over to. Well, at least her justification was, I'm going to go over and consult with Suzanne to ask her about conceding the putt. I think that's what I read, but. No, I would have certainly have loved to have heard someone say that's good. I guess it was Allison Lee said she heard someone say that. Things. You hear that in the crowd all the time. You'll hit a shot from the fairway or whatever, and you'll hit it a foot and go out. You'll hear somebody go, "Oh, that's good, pick it up." So it's hard to say. There's a lot of things in play. There's a lot of discussion going back and forth, and really only Allison Lee, who was, it was her putt, her responsibility to make sure that she either made the putt or she heard one of Suzanne or Charlie Hall, kind of voice that out. I think what would, and I've not heard this yet, and this is only a suggestion, but it would make sense to me that if a referee is with every group, why not let the referee make the determination in whether the hole has been completed or not. It's okay for, the playing partner to say pick it up, and once the referee hears that, then he or she will say, hey, the hole is halved in 4, or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's a way to kind of clarify some of these things, because you get people yelling from the crowd and
right.
a little bit of gamesmanship, and it could have been a little bit of gamesmanship on the part of the European team. I doubt that. I really doubt that. So late in the match, I don't know if you'd wait that long to do that. I don't think you're going to tell your partner, hey, let's wait till they get a 1-footer and let's try to trick. I don't think that was part of it, but some people have thought that. And going back to what you said, yes, I think that when you walk off the green like that, you are kind of indicating that it's good. It's kind of like when you're playing blackjack in Vegas. If you want to stand, you can't just say I'm good. You actually have to wave your hand over the card so the camera picks it up. So,
right.
I don't know. I just think a simple solution would be to allow the referee to do it. You got several, just few teams. You got enough people out there to do that. But just I know from my experiences in match play that verbalizing and hearing, the giving of a putt or the hole or whatever the case may be is what you need to hear.
Mm-hmm. And you have played a lot of match play events, and you've been in and around the tour for a lot of years, Shaun. Have you seen examples out there about bad sportsmanship that whether you had to deal with it, and it's certainly probably not at this level, but something that occurred out there, and you don't have to name names if you don't want, but I'm just sort of curious where you thought to yourself, really, man?
No, I mean there's stories. Certainly any of the Ryder Cups going back to where Paul Azinger and Seve Ballesteros and kind of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s type of stuff. Just gamesmanship. People jiggling coins in their pocket. Giving a putt on one hole and not giving a shorter putt on the next hole. Coughing in people's swings. Starting
Have
to
you
walk
seen that?
when you're. I've seen it happen a couple times.
Wow.
But it was a long time ago, and I don't know. I don't really understand it. I mean, I think any advantage that you try to gain, needs to be done with your play, not with some of the other stuff. I mean, what does it matter? The guy's still got to hit a shot. I mean, you see those in other sports. You see people, and when they're playing basketball, that the fans through the fans are waving towels or pom poms or whatever the case may be, and try to distract someone from shooting a free throw, or it's unfortunate that some of these things have happened. There's people that slow play other players. They intentionally speed up their play. I think there's a lot of things to do, and I think if you have to resort to those type of tactics, and you're not very confident in your ability to beat your opponent, and I don't know, maybe I'm just too nice of a person. I just don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I'm not a win at all costs type of person, and I think I've learned that. And maybe it's because I haven't won as much, and that may be part of it. It's a game that I've not won very. I've won quite a few tournaments, but only on the tour have I won one, and that's obviously the highest level. So maybe I have some pacifist in me. I don't know. I'm not really one to back down from things, but at the same time, maybe I'm just too good of a sport. It's the one thing that I try to convey to my children. And it's if you ever watch me or come to one of my child's soccer games, you'll see me. I'm at the far end of the field. I've just gotten so disturbed and disgusted by the parenting of some of these teams, yelling at the refs, yelling at their kids, yelling to take out other players. I just don't want to be a part of it. And so maybe some of that killer instinct is gone from me. I don't know. Maybe I've just kind of gotten a little bit more mature, but the gamesmanship has been out there for a long time. It's rampant in, from the 80s and 90s, all the stories that I mentioned earlier about Paul Azinger and Seve Ballesteros and those types of things.
Do you mind sharing? I'm sure our listeners now are going, they can't remember, it may not have even been around in the 80s when that sort of stuff happened. Do you mind sharing one of those stories between Azinger and Seve?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was definitely things about, people moving and people coughing and people jiggling change. I think those were some of the things. There was a story that I read the other day. It was just kind of a cutout piece it happened to Ken Green, and I don't know he might have been paired with Calcavecchia in a Ryder Cup, and they were playing Seve and Olafaba, who were partners for life. Those guys were always paired together. And Ken Green had a short putt, and I think he just, it was like a foot or something like that, and he picked it up, and Seve really started to get on Olafaba, and they basically were like, look, I'm not going to win this way. I mean, this and so there's stories of that, but I think it's the jiggling of the change, the slow play, the coughing in the backswings. I think, and there's probably a lot of other things too, that I've seen, and you can probably read. I'm sure you can go read Paul Aziner's book, and he's probably got a lot of that stuff in there. But it was at a time when the United States was, winning the Ryder Cup weekend or year in every, they were just always winning it. And the Cup was always staying in the United States, and so maybe just the drive to the pressure to win that Cup led some of these people astray. I don't know, but they make for interesting reading, and it just goes to show you that look, it's guys want to win and ladies want to win, and as I said, I'm not willing to resort to a certain level of play. I'm going to play at the same speed. If someone's going to try to slow play me, I just don't let those things really bother me. And I think a lot of the times the stories just kind of get blown up and made bigger than they really are. They're funny after the fact when you see it's like, wow, that guy was really doing that. Whether they always calling in a referee to say who's away, or I don't know. It's just a lot of things, but. But going back to the Ladies Solheim Cup, it was great. It was justice for the American team,
right,
to rally and to play as well as they did in the singles matches, and ultimately that's how you get your redemption or your revenge or however you feel on that, by winning. And I think that the American team can kind of get back in their team room on Sunday, and I'm sure a lot of this stuff is discussed, but it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch golf with people breaking down on the green, crying and stuff like that. It's hard to watch that, but it's an emotional game, and I think it's the greatest game, and that people, you have the opportunity to treat your opponent with a lot of respect, and I think that's what everyone tries to do. It doesn't always happen that way because you have a lot of personalities. But in the end, it was great to have the American team get their just desserts and bring back that cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested when you've mentioned a couple of times guys slow playing you. Is that did you see guys that normally play at a let's say brisker pace that slowed down because they were trying to throw your game off a little bit?
I mean, it's happened a couple times. It's been a long time. But I'm not an overly fast player anyway. I mean, as compared to some of the guys like Chris Riley and Joe Ogilvy, and there's a few others out there that play pretty quickly. But again, people will try to use any advantage that
try to get an edge.
To try to get an edge, and is that it breaking the rules? Absolutely not. Is it in the spirit of the game? Probably not. But it's I don't know. It's like when you play another team in basketball. You do try. Things about the other team. They're an up-tempo team. You see it in football. What does Notre Dame do? Notre Dame does it, and I think Northwestern does it, and I don't know if Michigan does it. I think they play on turf now. But if they're going to play a fast-running team, what do? They grow the grass up.
Right.
I mean, they grow the grass to make it longer, to slow the game down. So there's a lot of things, which I don't agree with, by the way. I mean, I think all the fields need to be maintained to a certain level. I mean, all the dimensions of the fields are that way. So there's a lot of things I don't agree with of doing that. But that's one example. The teams will, they'll grow the grass up a couple of weeks in advance of a team that just can run it down your throat, and that's all part of it too. So it's out there, and people do it. Not always. They're not breaking the rules. Just maybe not always in the spirit of the game.
Right. And Shaun, earlier we were talking with Steve Mona about the importance of Olympic golf next year, and for the broader view and the growth of the game and introduction, to what it means, globally, particularly over in China and Japan and those areas. As a player out on the tour, do you see it that way? Do you see how important the 2016 Olympics are? Because as Steve pointed out, it's only guaranteed to be in the Olympics twice, and if it's going to continue to be an Olympic event, it really has to come off really well down there in Rio. What are your thoughts about what we can expect to see, and what you guys as players out on tour feel about the golf being a part of the Olympics?
Well, look, I love watching the Olympics. I love the Winter Olympics.
Me too.
But I really do. I just love all the different sports and the skiing and the bobsledding and I really like that. And so I watch the Olympics and I appreciate what it must take for these most of them are amateurs to put their life on hold for 4 years and train and because it's got to be hard to do. I mean, when the next Olympics, when you're done with one Olympics, and then next thing you know, you're basically almost 4 years out from the other one, and you're starting to train for 4 years. It's hard to look that far out and just motivate yourself and continue to compete.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, clearly I'm not involved. I'm not invested in, and I'm not going to be on the team so I don't know how guys are really reacting to it. I think people we've all watched the Olympics and have seen how great they really are. To be able to share your sport with your teammates and with other countries and cultures and stuff like that, and to be around different people. I think there's more to the Olympics than just playing the actual sport. It's the camaraderie that each of the team feels by spending time with other teams, getting to know them a little bit. But I don't know, the qualification process seems to be somewhat complicated about the numbers of guys that can play. They've had a lot of issues, with the design of the golf course, an impact on, Rio and the people, and displacing those, people from, their places to live, in the process of building the course. So there's been a lot of negativity at this point.
Right.
But do I think it's going to be great for the game? I don't necessarily think so. I still think that the PGA Tour and all of the things that are associated with that, with the great players that we have in Jason, Rory, and Jordan, the major championships, the World Golf Championships, the FedEx Cup, those things. Those are the things we see year in and year out, and that's how the guys make their money. But being part of an Olympic team, I think, would be really cool to spend some time with some of the other athletes. Michael Phelps, if he's going to qualify for this next Olympic team, I think it'd be cool to kind of meet him and hang around him and maybe pick their brains a little bit on their philosophies and maybe you can learn something. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'll watch it. I think it is a lot better for other countries that are trying to grow their game. You see that when the Masters invited that young Guan,
right.
a couple of years ago to the Masters. Not that he wasn't I guess he won the Asian Masters and he qualified, and how much money was made by the people down in Augusta by having the viewership of over 1 billion people, in China. So I think it's maybe more significant for other countries to have their national heroes be sports figures and to break through some of the barriers that may exist for them. I've seen that before too with players on the golf that, they're born in the United States, they're of a foreign descent, and when they play in the United States, they're from here, but when they play in foreign countries, they're from the other country. So I've always kind of found that a little bit odd, and you're kind of like, okay, that must be nice to have, live over here and be of Asian descent or whatever it is, and be able to play under their flag, because now you're basically getting, it's just an interesting dynamic. But I do understand that, as I said a minute ago, breaking through some of the barriers that may exist for these people of kind of getting out, in front of, I think they get a lot of support when a country recognizes a talent level of a person. You see they put forth a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time in making sure that this person kind of gets out of town, if you will, and makes it. And I think it's great. But as far as the Olympics in the United States, I love watching it, and I certainly would love to play in it. But I don't, would you rather win an Olympic medal or a major championship? I don't know. It would be nice to have both, I guess. But question has been asked, will be asked.
Right.
And maybe after that person wins a medal, it might be more significant after the fact. So it'll be interesting. I think there'll be a lot of viewership. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see the golf course and kind of what they've come up with down there. And, I'll be coming around in a year, so there's a lot of stuff I know they're trying to get ready for, trying to see who's qualifying and everything else. But it'll be exciting.
All right, Shaun, let's get into some of our listener questions that they have for you this week. The first one is, how excited are you about going back to Oak Hill for the PGA Championship in 2023?
Yeah, it was great to see. I think, look, each PGA that I play in, I'm excited to be there. At my age, as the years are kind of going by, maybe my ability to compete. I did put something out on social media. I got a call, an email from someone down in the PGA offices that asked me if I would kind of go to social media with a couple things, after they were going to make their announcement, and which I did. I was thinking about that, about how many, PGA championships am I going to compete in? I mean, I think I'm exempt till I'm 60 or so. I don't suspect I'll be playing, probably even playing golf at that age. And I was thinking kind of to myself about maybe the one at Oak Hill would be the last one that I would play in. I'll be 54. I'll still be eligible to play the Senior PGA Championship, as being a Champions Tour player. So maybe that's what I'm going to do. I haven't thought that through. That's still a long way off. And as I said before, it's hard to look that far out. I mean, it's exciting. I know that the PGA loves kind of getting their sights set and everything. There's a lot of prep work that they have to do to get those courses ready. It's probably a couple-year process, and maybe not as long. When you have a route and stuff, and where everything is going to be built. You don't have to make as many site visits. But yeah, I'm excited about it. The golf course was totally different in 2013 than what I saw in 2003, which you would come to expect. They'd added a few tees, changed up the 15th green, really redesigned the 15th green, and but conditions were much softer than we saw in 2003. So it played very long, and it was an emotional week for me in 2013. I was playing okay, but I think just emotionally, I wasn't invested in the tournament so much because when I won in 2003, it was just Stephanie and I. It was just me and my wife there, and to be able to have my entire family. Of course, my mom passed away. It'll be 5 years in October, and so she obviously wasn't there. But so just emotionally, I was just not invested in playing great golf that week. I wanted to play great golf, but I spent my time even during the tournament rounds thinking about what had happened to me in 2003, the shot that I had hit, where I was in the fairway, where I was on the green, just how I was feeling. So hopefully in 2023, I'll be able to get past that stuff, and who knows, maybe that will be my last one, and that might be a good one to go out on.
Do you ever go back to Oak Hill just as a course of having been having won a major there, and to allow yourself to relive what that was like, and to bring back some good memories?
Yeah, I've only been back one time. I mean, other than the two tournaments that I played, I was back sometime. I think it was it was either 2004 or 2005. I was back for it was probably 2004 because they had put the plaque in. I remember that, and So no, I'd only been back one other time besides the golf tournament. Hey, look, Rochester, New York's way up there. I get notes from people up there. I see people out when I'm playing that were there. Matter of fact, there's I think there's a young man that I think is committed to the University of Memphis golf team, I believe, that is from Rochester and is a member at Oak Hill. I went, being kind of busy. I'm a volunteer assistant golf coach for the men and women at IUPUI in Indianapolis, and I've been kind of involved with helping the ladies. The University of Memphis Lady Tigers had a tournament at my home club here in Memphis about 3 weeks ago, and then I went and spoke to the University of Memphis golf team it was just a couple of days ago. I guess Wednesday I went, and then I learned that this young man was going to come. I haven't met him, but look, I love the place. It's a beautiful golf course, but there's not a whole lot of opportunities to really get up there and go see it. It's a beautiful place, beautiful part of the country, great people, so anyway, it'd be nice to get back up there at some point, but we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right. Our next question is, if you could call any three guys and go play golf with them, who's getting the phone call?
Oh gosh. Well, I would love, my dad to be a part of that group. He is the one that really, him and my mom both, spent a lot of time and money and supported me through, my younger years and even to today. So my dad would certainly be one of those. Jack Nicklaus would be somebody right at the top. I mean, I go back. Kerry Middlecoff would probably be the other. I have a tremendous amount of respect for all of the guys that really kind of paved the way for the PGA Tour to be as successful as it is. The stories of Byron Nelson and Sam Snead and Chichi Rodriguez. And, I mean, all these guys that I used to see when I was a kid growing up at Colonial Country Club when they would have the Danny Thomas Memphis Classic. I mean, I never really had a favorite golfer. But, having those other guys, being a part of the foursome, I think would be incredible. And I don't know what course I'd love to play. I mean, there's so many courses out there I'd love to play. But I think if you ask anyone, any player, it doesn't, you don't even have to be a professional golfer. If you were going to play somewhere, where would you play? Yeah. And I would say that everybody's going to include one of their parents, right? The one that really got them introduced into the game of golf. They're always going to be there. And fortunately, what was great, in 2003, I got invited to play at the Dunhill Links Championship, which is it's a version of Pebble Beach. You play with an amateur and you play the old course, you play Carnoustie and you play Kings Barnes. And so I was asked to come over and play, and I said, look, I'll come play as long as I'm allowed to bring my father as my partner. And they said absolutely. And so my dad and I spent 8 days over there together. We flew over on a Gulfstream jet out of New York with some friends and stayed at the Old Course Hotel. And it was, I would say it was kind of my repayment, if you look at it that way, to say thank you to my father for, kind of getting me introduced into the game of golf. And always being there to support me, and we had a tremendous time. And I've been back several other times, not with him, but we still talk about that. And so my dad will always be a part of my foursome.
Yeah, mine too. By the way, that's a great story, though. Shaun, from this is a question for me, not one from one of our listeners, but right. With it being football season now, if we have a great finish at the Tour Championship, and maybe they're getting lucky because here in Atlanta it's raining right now, so maybe they get lucky and it rains out today's round. But if it didn't, and we have a great finish tomorrow, Sunday, football season, no one's going to watch it. I mean, there's going to be 10 people watching that golf tournament, which might end up being just a fantastic finish. Should the tour come up with a better way to present its whether you think the FedEx Cup means a lot or not as a fan? I mean, it is sort of the culmination of the season, and it is going to crown the FedEx champion. Do they need to come up with a better way to present that as opposed to trying to do it on Sunday afternoon when the NFL is king?
Yeah, maybe. I think I have heard some things on different radios broadcasts about maybe not finishing on the weekend, maybe finishing on a Monday or finishing it on a Tuesday. It seems like to me the dynamic of TV viewership versus, I will call them fans in the stands, has shifted. Mm-hmm. We all know that the TV is the most important way, probably the best way of kind of getting your message across in your brand and those types of things. For an example, let me deviate for just 1 second. If you look at Europe, and I enjoy watching European tour golf. I've played a lot of those courses. I know all the guys, and so I enjoy it. But if you watch the TV over there, there's nobody watching. I mean, a few places you see a lot of fans, but for the most part, it is a TV-driven event. And maybe that's the way the tour needs to focus more on. I mean, I think that by having on the weekend, you're getting a lot of people in the stands and that, and of course that does something, to sell FedEx, it sells Coca-Cola and all the other sponsors that are participating. But maybe the viewership is better, and profile obviously it's going to be. I mean, you can attract millions versus several 100,000, just by keeping it on TV and putting it in a prime time. But now, look, you got Monday night, you got Sunday night football, you got Monday night football. I don't know if there's an issue. I think they've been trying to battle that for a long time and how to do that. I think you just have to realize that there's going to be people that are going to want to watch golf. I mean, you're going to have your diehard fans that are going to watch golf over the NFL on Sunday, but I'm sure there's some analytics out there that shows that some of these sponsors aren't getting their money's worth, and if that's the case, then I guess they're going to have to retool it. But I'm not privy to that information. I can say that I'm not probably going to watch the Tour Championship. I'm going to watch college football today. I'm going to go to my child's soccer tournament this afternoon. Tomorrow I might watch some golf. I'm not a huge NFL guy, but there's a lot of conversation, so there must be an issue there. I mean, and the issue is going to come from the sponsors basically saying that I'm not getting the bang for my buck. And when you start having sponsors say that presents a big problem for the tour. Like I said, you want fans in the stands. You want to see the 16th or 18th hole. You like to see them 5 deep, and they will be. I mean, people love going to watch golf. And I think golf as a live event, as being there, is really pretty incredible. To be out there and to see all of the kind of tactile things, you can see, you can hear, you can feel the conditions. It's hard to sit back and just watch it on a flat screen. And the commentators do a great job, but it's a difficult sport, I think, to watch on TV. And I've known that for a long, long time. Maybe it's because I play the game and I just don't really pay that much attention to it. I don't know, but golf is just one of those sports that you really need to be there to really, I think, just get a feel for everything, to see the course, to see the type of surface that these guys are playing on, and I think always being at events is better than watching them on TV. But anyway, there must be an issue there because it's brought up quite a bit. But what their solution is, I just don't know. I mean, because where are you going to end? When are you going to start the season? You're going to start the season in football season? I mean, some would argue that the season's too long as it is.
Right.
Even with this wraparound schedule, what I think has really done a good job in embracing the events that we used to call the fall series. So those tournaments are extremely important and relevant, and we're all happy to have them on the schedule. But what do you do? It's amazing that a sport that is able to play. You look at college football that's made up of 12 games, and then you got bowl games and things like that. Just how hugely successful they've been able to be. I don't know if it's the violent nature of the game. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of support, the conferences that you're in. Like, I'm in the Southeast, so even though I support the Memphis Tigers in American Athletic, I do follow the SEC. My wife went to LSU. I'm close to Ole Miss. You're getting bombarded with Facebook sites like Saturday Down South and those types of things that are really promoting the sport. And I don't see that. You have the Golf Channel, and you have the PGA Tour, and you have Golf Magazine and Golf.com, they're the same, that are really kind of promoting golf. But, I mean, there are so many outlets for other sports, for the college football, and so many more writers, so many more articles. The daily fantasy leagues with FanDuel and DraftKings.
Right.
The arguments are being made is whether or not this is it legalized gambling versus skill. I mean, there's a lot of things, and I guess there is fantasy golf.
Right.
I don't know how successful it's been, or but there's a lot of great things that these other sports have to offer, and I guess the guys at the top are running this golf show better figure it out pretty quickly.
A couple more questions from our listeners before we let you go, Shaun. First, who puts on the best Pro-Am?
Oh, I don't know. You mean like at a tournament site or an outing?
Yeah.
Or matter of fact, because I'm doing one on Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, is that right?
In Norfolk. Yeah, I'm going up to do one. Toby's Dream House, Dream Foundation. Anyway, it's like Make-A-Wish. So there's a bunch of us going up there for that. But oh gosh, the Pro-Ams. I mean, I think a lot of the people really embraced when they would play in Charlotte, and you'd have two amateurs. But I love all the Pro-Ams, to be honest with you. It's always something I've really enjoyed playing. I think the AT&T being a Pro-Am as an entire tournament is pretty incredible. To be able to share 3 days with either another celebrity, just another person out there that just loves golf. Those are all great. Golly, I'm thinking of the best Pro-Ams that I've played in, and you just get the most. You get a lot of stuff. The Sony Pro-Am is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The used to be the one in Honolulu at the start of the year. Well, it used to be the start of the year. You play. I played with, spent some time with Kevin James and Adam Sandler. Went to Denver with them and all of his Happy Madison group. Jack Giraputo that runs Happy Madison. If anybody watches any of Adam's movies, you'll see Happy Madison. I went to dinner with him a couple times. So I got to meet them. Played with a lot of the big time people at Sony, which is a huge corporation. I never realized how many divisions they had. But, they give you all sorts of stuff. Sony gift cards, you get DVD players and all these things, which were great when my children were little, because you take these portable DVD players and you take them to restaurants and put headphones with them, and you can actually enjoy a nice dinner with your wife, So, but yeah, Tiger, we had a pretty cool Pro-Am at Tiger's tournament in 2003. I was fortunate enough to get invited to play one time, and that was really cool. And he gave out we got a Vespa, kind of a moped, kind of a mini scooter type of thing. And so some people look at Pro-Ams as being, where are you going to get all sorts of stuff, and I had referenced that one and referenced to Sony, but they're all unique. They're all fun in their own ways, and because the people you're playing with, they're excited to be there. They've picked you to play. It's not like they draw a name out of a hat and they're stuck with you, because there's some anxious moments with that when you haven't been maybe playing as well, and everybody wants to play with the notable players, and we all understand that. And I've always kind of been like, oh God, these guys are stuck with me. They're probably, going, I'm stuck with Shaun and Micheel, and I never thought about that so much in the beginning, right after I won the PGA, but something I think about now. And so I think for me, I try to make everybody just really have a good time. I'm always there to help people. We tell stories, and I get to know the guys. I've played with some really cool players. Yogi Berra, I played with him. I think I played with him 3 times.
Is that right?
In the Bob Hope. and I got to know him. I got to know him well on the golf course, but I got to play with Bert Rutan, who's an aerospace engineer that's designed this thing for Richard Branson. These, the Spaceship 1 and Spaceship 2 that are supposed to be taking, citizens up into space, which I'd love to sign up for. I'm not going to pay for it, but I volunteer to go up. And so it's just been. They're all fun. When you can kind of get some of these guys out of their shell a little bit and get them to talk, you realize there's a lot of interesting people out there. My whole goal is to make sure that they have a great time. They want to play great golf, but I'm there to kind of let them know that, hey, let's have a good time. If you need some help, today may not be the best day to work on it, but give them some tips on kind of how to, maybe fix their putting or just give them some ideas and some of the things that I think about when I'm playing golf. So all the pro-ams are fun. The Sony Open was probably the best one with all the great things that they had to offer us after we got done. So anyway, they're all great.
One last one before we let you go, Shaun. It says, what events or tournaments have you played in where even today, when you think back on it or get out there on the course, give you goosebumps?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, certainly teeing off on Thursday in 2013 at Oak Hill. That was certainly one. And there's been a lot of memorable experiences. There's goosebumps for different reasons. There's happy goosebumps, and then there's absolute nerves and sheer terror, which exist. I mean, I think all of that is based on how you're playing. I was nervous this year at the PGA because I felt like I was playing some great golf, and it was, I felt like it was kind of my opportunity. It was going to be my last term of the year unless I did something pretty special there. So I was pretty nervous at the PGA this year, starting on number 10. And but other places like the old course at St. Andrews, Carnoustie, these types of old kind of historic venues where there's a lot of history, and to be standing on the tee and to walk across the Swilken Burn, they're crossing one and then coming back off at 18, and just seeing the old town there of St. Andrews. I mean, it's just amazing to think that those buildings have stood for hundreds and hundreds of years, and that golfers from all over the world, have played there. So, right. Again, I get goosebumps for great things that I'm about to experience, and for things that I know I'm going to be stuck out there and wish I wasn't. But most of the time I get them for good reasons. And, hey, you wouldn't be human if you weren't a little bit nervous. I mean, I understand that, you may not be too nervous on the tee of a PGA Tour event, maybe something that you've played in a long, long time. I mean, you find those types of nerves as you get into the round, as the tournament kind of comes to an end, and where your position is in the tournament. But there are very few places really you step on the first tee that I've played where you just look out there and you're just like, man, this is so cool. And you just kind of get chills. And, I'm just maybe not as fortunate as some to have played a lot of those courses, or maybe just taking that for granted that I've played so much golf that I don't really think of that. I go back to what I said about my father and I playing together in the Dunhill Links Championship. And to be able to share that with him, to get him inside the ropes. I know it was nerve-wracking for him because he was not out there just playing golf. He was actually playing for a real score, and he wanted to help me and everything else. So I imagine he must have been pretty intense. But it was really, really, really neat to be able to stand on the first tee of the old course and have him look out there and think, man, I'm in tournament golf mode here. And I'll just never forget that. So there's a lot of moments like that, but not as many as I would have liked.
Well, thank you for sharing those stories. And Shaun, before we let you go, remind our listeners again how they can follow you both online and over social media.
Yeah, I'm at Shaun Micheel PGA on Twitter, and then Shaun Micheel in Facebook. And I haven't really been doing a whole lot of social media stuff. I've been following following a lot of stuff and haven't had a whole lot to say. So, but people that ask to follow me, I usually accept. So, anyway, that's where you can find me.
Great. Shaun, thank you again for joining me again this week. I always get such a kick out of listening to the stories that you share and answering the questions that people are asking of you. I hope we can keep it going and keep getting your insights, because you're so fantastic to have a part of the show.
Well, I enjoy sharing my experiences, and it's just it's part of me. It's part of some of the things that I really like doing, and hope we can keep it going.
Absolutely. Shaun, thank you very much for being here. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your college football today, and we look forward to hopefully catching up with you again next week. But in the meantime, all the best to you and your family, my friend.
I appreciate it, Chris. Same to you as well.
All right. Thanks, Shaun.
Okay.
That's Shaun Micheel, folks, 2003 PGA champion, and above and beyond all of that, a champion person. It don't come better than Shaun Micheel, I promise you that. All right, folks, it's time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. Before we do close up shop, remind you again about the great book that our friend Dave Stockton Jr. and his father, Dave Stockton Sr., have out there. It's called Own Your Game. Remember, folks, so much of the game, and typically we talk a lot about this on this show, not so much today, but usually we're talking a lot about, the mental side of the game, and that the game that we play between that 5-inch space between our ears. So get your mind right. In this latest book, the Stocktons let you know how to play winning golf. And how to do that? Using your mind better. Own Your Game recreates the experience of riding 18 holes with Dave Stockton at one of his highly sought-after corporate outings, and draws from his experience as a champion player both on the regular tour and the senior tour as well, plus being a revered coach. He shows us all how to think better, stay calmer, execute more consistently, and most importantly now, folks, how to enjoy the game more thoroughly. Go to StocktonGolf.com to get your copy, and for a couple of extra dollars, Mr. Stockton will even autograph it for you. All right, folks, my sincere thanks once again to Steve Mona, Kellie Stenzel, and Shaun Micheel for joining me today and making today's show so much fun for me to be a part of. We thank you for tuning in and choosing to listen to the show. We appreciate that very much. Please also check out our sister show, Thursday Night Tailgate, with me, my co-host Bob Lazzari, and our announcer Joe LaGenusa. That show airs live every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Armed Forces Radio Network, as well as Blog Talk Radio and great sites across the Internet, like iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player.fm, and SoundCloud. As well, you can find Thursday Night Tailgate on Podbeam and Audio Boom as well. We're joined every week on that show by legends from around the NFL and the CFL. Please also check out both shows on Facebook. Give us a like. That's important to us, too. You can find us online at this show, nextonthetee.net, and ThursdayNightTailgate.com. You can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free, folks. Plus, keep up to date with who some of our future guests are going to be. Again, one more time, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Until next week, my friends. Hit him straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors, and media members go to tell their stories. Join us the same time every Saturday to hear more stories about the game we love, from the people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about the great game of golf.